Hail, and welcome back to Elder Futhark Divination 101. I realize it's been quite a long time since I made the last entry in the series, named Gabo. I would like to apologize to every single one of you that has been following me, that has been contacting me about whether or not I would even make a follow-up video on Wunjo, whether I would finish the series, if something happened to me. To answer your questions, in the past year, or almost the past year, a lot has changed in my life. I've moved around, I've had so many life changes, so many spiritual developments. I've been busy with college, all that stuff, as I think I mentioned in the last video nearly a year ago. I had moved from Holland, my home country, to Washington State in the USA. I stayed there for about 6 months. It eventually became too expensive. It didn't do any wonders for my mood over there. My best friend who lives in Arizona, she owns her own house, and eventually, we came to the agreement that I would be moving to Arizona. I currently live here now with her in her own house. I finally found a nice place that is affordable for me. I changed colleges. I've had a lot of stuff happen on my spiritual path as well, a lot of developments. I feel I actually grew quite a lot. I've had time to, because I didn't need to work my butt off anymore to try and sustain myself like I had to in Washington, alongside full-time college, obviously. A lot of things have changed, basically. That's also the reason why it took me so damn long to make make this follow-up video. But yeah, now after all is said and done, and after I hopefully clarified why it took so long, let's continue to the next chapter, Elder Futhark Divination 101. So, the rune of joy, the rune of happiness. The rune means light, happiness, emotional satisfaction in all shapes and sizes. It could be regarding relationships that you have with a spouse, with friends, with family. It could have to do with inner peace and clarity, some kind of spiritual richness which brings you joy, certain realizations in life that you may not need certain things that you are told that you need, like a lot of physical wealth, for example. We're always told to strive for material gains and all that stuff, and realizing that moderation in these things can be a very healthy and good thing, can, for example, bring about a lot of clarity, a lot of peace and joy and happiness, so that you no longer need to slave and work for these things. It can, mean cleared up confusion, finding joy in that, like what direction do I need to take my life in, where does my spiritual path leads me, where's my spiritual path going to lead me, excuse me, which is something that I was actually struggling with for the past year, because I was like, what am I exactly supposed to be doing? And yeah, I actually, found out what my purpose here is on this planet in this current lifetime, and it brings a lot of satisfaction, a lot of power, a lot of strength, confidence, conviction. Also, the realization of the things you need to work on from a spiritual perspective. These are all things that we will be discussing over the course of discussing. Of course, as always, it will mainly focus on divination, but as you are hopefully used to by now. With each rune, I will also discuss spiritual aspects of the rune because I find that too important, too interesting to simply ignore, you know. So yeah. Anyway, the modern day letter equivalent of Wunjo, despite the fact that it looks like a P, actually are W and V, because you know Wunjo, that's the first letter of the rune. So that's the things that it can be equated to. The associated astrological sign can be seen as Leo. The associated element is ice and therefore also water. And the associated gods are Odin and Frigg. So, as mentioned, Wunjo is a rune that is all about happiness. It is all about being fulfilled, content with the situation, you know, appreciation of rewards that you're reaping, appreciation of the path you're on, you know, efforts that are put into work by you in the past that are paying off in a more permanent and satisfactory manner than Yira, for example, which is a rune that we will be discussing in Second Aett. Because you know the difference between Yira and Wunjo, I feel is Yira is always a calm before the storm, reaping a gift before you know that gift is needed to combat even harder times. So in that it is a positive rune, but also a rune that can signify more challenges ahead. Wunjo to me is more a conclusion, which is very fitting, seeing as how it is the last rune in the First Aett. Because in the First Aett we're dealing with all these energies like Uru's pure strength, you know, primal strength, sexual power, Fehu, the attainment of material wealth, possessions, you know, cattle, monetary, that sort of thing. You have Gabo, giving gifts, you know, all this exchange of energy. And all these runes like Kenas, attaining knowledge, and Amsus, deriving wisdom from the knowledge, Raivo, the path that leads us to places. Wunjo is a very, very fitting conclusion to the First Aett, I feel, because it is about the full reaping of the rewards that you have worked so hard for on your path so far. So, you know, as I said, it can be reaping of rewards in terms of wealth, although that is more Fehu's, you know, territory in my opinion, in my interpretations, what I'm feeling from those rules. It can be especially about emotional and spiritual satisfaction. For me, Wunjo is very much about the emotional aspect of, you know, finding a good wife or spouse, finding someone who you can grow old with, finding you know, happiness with your friends, with your family. It represents the removal of you know, anxieties, and as I mentioned earlier, confusion, lack of direction, finally knowing where to go, and then finding fulfillment on that path. It's about, you know, finding happiness in a chaotic world. It's about finding the balance within yourself, your place in everything, in the grand scheme of things. You know, lasting endings for the better, something that you have worked for, that is built, that endures. Light, love, peace within, all those happy, fuzzy, warm things, you know. Moving on to Wunjo and its upright meaning in terms of divination. So when you see Wunjo appearing, with keeping in mind all the things that we just mentioned, you know, about the significance that it can have, is usually, well, usually I should say, always actually, a very positive. It is, especially when you see it in you know, a future kind of place in the reading. If it is in the, you know, the future slot or the outcome slot, you know, whatever you want to call it. It is a very positive room. usually it indicates that if you continue on your current path, there is much joy, much happiness awaiting, a lot of fulfillment. Depending on the context of the reading, whether it be about, business, whether it be about relationships of any kind, so platonic, romantic, familial ties, all that kind of thing. Even, the healthy birth of a child, for example, I suppose, and if you're inquiring about what kind of life the child might have, if Wunjo shows up, it might be an indication that overall, the child might have a very happy life, or a very fulfilling life, a very rich life. He or she won't know a lot of super negative stuff. I mean, obviously, it's never possible in this world to always just have positive things happen to you. I mean, yeah, so these are just a few examples of when you can see Wunjo appear, what it means. It represents the conclusion of efforts, like I said. So, positive endings. It is very positive in its upright state. It is an indication of a lot of happiness that's going to come if you continue on your current path. That's always the thing with divination. Always remember that divination is a snapshot in time. So, I mean, for the people that might go like, oh yeah, divination, this and that, never works. Well, yeah, I mean, it is currently, if you're protecting yourself, if you're obviously receiving information from positive entities, from positive spirits, from your own positive, clear psyche, and a room like this shows up, it is always just a maybe promise, like if you continue on this path, because that's what divination is, as most people who are well versed in divination know. It is simply the path that is most likely to happen at this point in time, should you continue on your current direction. The reason I'm saying this is because with such a positive rune like Wunjo, it is very easy to just, kick back and like sit there and be like, oh yeah, so the reading said, Wunjo, I'm just, like kind of kick my feet up, grab a beer, and put on some music. I'm gonna let everything work out, and I'm not gonna put in any effort in it because the room said, oh, it's gonna be okay. No, it doesn't work like that. I'm afraid. Sorry. You always gotta actively, take a stance. Always actively gotta, pursue things. The Nordic Germanic gods, they don't reward people who are lazy. They help people who help themselves. So it is never, ever, ever advisable to, when you see a positive rule like this, to just assume that everything's just going to be okay because a reading says so. You should never put that much trust in divination. It's always a guidance. It's never a definitive kind of thing. That is a warning I think I've given earlier in like one of my very first videos. I'm not quite sure on that, but I do feel it needs to be said in this specific instance. So basically, an example of Wunjo appearing upright in a reading. For example, someone's love life. Okay, basically it means that this individual might be inquiring, about your spouse, your new spouse. You just met a new girl or a new guy or whatever, and basically you're asking the runes like, how much of a potential does this rune have? Because I'm going to try and stick with what I just said about being snapshot. So basically, how much potential? Because that's would be the right question to ask in such a case. You should never ask definitive answers like, is this going to happen? Because your future isn't fixed. In my personal belief, that is absolutely the case. We have free will. I do believe, that we can shape our lives. That we can mold it into our desired directions. I very firmly believe that. So, there is a So let's just assume that someone asks a question about their spouse, like they met their spouse, and they go like, okay, so how much potential does this relationship that I am new to, how much does it have? And Wunjo shows up as the future, the outcome. Basically, what that means is, it has a very good potential of potentially lasting either very long term, or if you can attain it, even for the rest of your life, kind of deal. So that is a possible kind of thing. Another example could be like, if you to stick with the topic of love life, if you ask like, what can I do to attract a spouse for me, and Wunjo shows up as a challenge room, it could indicate that you first need to, find joy within yourself, find joy in your life, and or it could even mean, like, depending on what your intuition obviously tells you, like, do the things you love, do the things that you find enjoyment in, like, if you enjoy martial arts, for example, or if you enjoy going to the gym, or if you enjoy playing an instrument, it could mean like, do those things. Go play in a band, or go to the gym 5 days a week, and it might be likely that you meet someone that way. Those things. That's what it could mean as well. It's always obviously up to the intuition of the one that's reading it, and dependent on the context of the query's question and how it is phrased, because that's always very important with the runes. How you phrase the question. It's very important to be as specific as possible. So, yeah. So, moving on to the spiritual meaning. This is actually my favorite part. I don't know. I like meditating on these runes, and just, applying them to your psyche, and thinking about what can I do to improve myself. And I encourage everyone who is into rune divination, or any form of divination, whether it be tarot cards, or what else have you, ogam, that kind of stuff. Um, to always meditate on the meaning of specific rune or card or stave, and to just see what kind of lesson you can learn from it. But anyway, moving on to the spiritual meaning of Wunjo, to the upright meaning, that is. It strongly embodies in spiritual context the emotions of happiness, and it represents a certain state of harmony that's reached, a certain state of fulfillment that is reached. Despite the fact that maybe around you the world might be in chaos, you might find happiness despite the fact that you're surrounded by people who are perhaps unhappy, or people who are so busy with their own lives, who are self-absorbed, that you find that center within yourself, where your center of power, your center of peace, your center of joy, of happiness, basically. Um, basically, it represents the joy of embarking on a spiritual journey. It represents the joy of learning lessons, which obviously may not always be pleasant, but even finding the joy in the lessons that are not so pleasant, perhaps. Um, it's something that I've had to do with a lot in the past year. I have learned, to trust others more, to rely on others more. Like, for example, like I said, I moved in with my best friend in Arizona. It took quite a leap of faith for me to go from Washington all the way to Arizona. But my friend's been with me, all along the way, and I'm so incredibly grateful for that. It was a really humbling experience to have to rely on someone other than myself, because I've always been so used to doing everything by myself, and always fighting for myself, always just surviving. Yeah, so I mean, it was a very, very positive learning experience in the end, even though at the time I was so incredibly frustrated, you know. So Wunjo is always the end result. It's always the positive end result of things. That's why it's the last thing in the eight, I feel, or one of the reasons it's the last thing in the eight. And you know, you take all that knowledge, all that power, all that wealth from the other seven rooms that come before it, and you apply that. You use it on your path. You use it to fight and find and guide your way through all the turmoil, the troubles, the pain that comes with growth, and eventually, you find that inner peace. You find that acceptance. You find that. I don't mistake me saying acceptance like take it lying down and I just get kicked around. No, what I mean with acceptance is you accept that this currently is your path, this is your situation. You stand there, you objectively go, this is what I need to do to change it. I'm gonna change it, and I change it, and the outcome is beautiful. So that's I feel a very practical stance to take to never let your emotions get the better of you. I mean, emotions serve a very beautiful purpose in life. They really do. I'm a Pisces. If anyone knows about emotions, you know what I mean. So I live by my emotions. I live by my intuition pretty much. But I've also had to learn to just like sit there objectively and say, does this make sense? Is this logical? Is this something that's going to be constructive to me? I mean, someone might tell me something, but at the end of the day, I'm the one that has to decide, is this good advice or not? And that could be from any source, it's all about basically just finding your way and finding peace with it. It is about just, finding that balance between, on one hand, you have emotion and logic, and then you have your intuition, and just finding the peace on the path that you're on, and finding the joy that comes as a result of walking that path. So, it is also about, I feel, doing the things you love. It is about, finding joy in your day-to-day activities. And what I mean by that is, despite the fact that others might tell you that you should go into, IT, when I was a teenager, I really wanted to be an artist. People would always tell me like, "Oh, you're so good at drawing, and this and that, and you have a passion for music and all that stuff." And I really wanted to, become an artist. And eventually, I was like, yeah, but I gotta, eventually feed a family and this and that, and I should probably go into IT. And once I started attending college back in Holland, when I was like 17, 18, and I started studying for my, IT degree, I absolutely loathed it. I hated it. I hated it so much. I didn't get along with the people there. I didn't share their interests other than maybe, playing video games, because that is what I do like to do. But, I was so incredibly bored. I was so unhappy. I just completely didn't know what I was doing there. And eventually, after years of kind of, searching and searching, what do I want to do? I mean, a decade later, I finally feel that what I'm doing right now, it might not be being an artist, because I still have this idea of, I need to have, money on the table, because that is the practical side of things, but I also need to do something that I enjoy. So I started studying psychology, because that is something I enjoy, and something that's going to very helpfully provide me with a decent income, so that I can, support the ones I love. But that's something that you also should very strongly consider on a more you know material level. I know this is about spiritual, but I do feel that all these layers of existence are very strongly interrelated, as any person of most religions will tell you, in some way, shape, or form. Because your choices in the physical affect your spiritual and mental well-being, and vice versa. So it is very important that these things are in balance and that you find joy in every aspect of your life. So I feel that Wunjo is also greatly about enhancing your spiritual happiness and your mental happiness, as well as your physical happiness. And yes, that includes sex. Yes, that includes finances. Yes, that includes love. Yes, that includes having a strong bond with the people that you love or your kin. You know, we now come to Wunjo Converse, which is, if you remember, sideways. So, Wunjo Converse, it can mean several things, which may on the surface seem, a little contradicting to each other. But again, that's where your intuition comes in. Your use logic, use emotion, use your intuition. It's all about finding that balance. When you're reading divination, never read from a state of fear. Never read from a state of just pure cold logic. Always read from that beautiful in between place where you can separate all the chatter in your mind. Always read from that from that neutral place, basically. So it can mean several things, like I said. Many times it can deal with being on the path to happiness, but not quite having attained it yet. That there might be blockage there. Um, it represents the querent's quest for happiness, in my understanding here. Rather than the actual destination of already finding or having found that joy. Because whereas upright Wunjo is about mostly, I should say, about the actual attainment of the joy and happiness, having found it. Um, Wunjo Converse is about being on the path, there being blockages, stuff needs to be overcome. Basically, that's what it's telling me when I see it. So, this could mean a wide variety of things. It might be about not having found all the pieces of the puzzle, or about having to be patient a little bit longer, because things take time. That's just a fact of life. Patience is called for in pretty much everything. Um, so don't try to hit your way through obstacles, but always find concrete ways of dealing with it. Always look within, like, what can I do to attain my desired outcome? What can I do to make my happiness my personal truth, my personal path that I want to be on? Because I feel it's also very important. It's probably more spiritual side of things, and we'll get back to that. When you feel called to do something, when your intuition, when your emotions, when your thoughts pull very strongly in a positive way, and I'm talking about, not speaking from a place of fear here, like what if, and if your thoughts get pulled to the what if. No, I'm talking about the things that you feel good about, the things that you want to do. When you get drawn to those things, it is usually a very, very good, indicator of what you are meant to do with your life. And I think that is why so many people in this world are unhappy. But again, I will discuss that with you guys um, on the spiritual side of things when we're done with the divination aspect of it. So more on that later. Excuse the sidetracking. There's just so much about this room for this past year that I've come to realize so many things, and it's absolutely beautiful, and it's so powerful right now. So excuse my sometimes a bit rambly, that I'm rambling a little bit here and there. So anyway, to continue on the divination aspect of things, it can indicate, like not so well hidden secret that is, putting, as one site that I looked at said, it's putting partnerships under strain, and like we discussed. A partnership could be anything. It could be a business partnership. It could be, it's like a friend lying to another friend about something. It could be a lover hiding something. So in that context, it can also mean, that the imagined love that someone has for you, like you could have a friend and you could be all like, oh yeah, you're my brother and this and that. You know what I mean? And eventually, it turns out that this guy's just like gossiping about you behind your back, or backstabbing you in some other way. Um, that sort of thing. It could mean a lot of things, basically. That there is something on your path to happiness that is in your way of attaining that happiness that needs to be uh, discovered, that needs to come to light, and that then slowly needs to be rooted out. And that may sound a bit harsh, but I'm sure you know what I mean. It's basically an obstacle that needs to be overcome. Like, I mean, if there were, in your garden, if your garden was covered by weeds, you would pull them out, right? Because you want your garden to look nice, because it just feels better that way energetically. It just looks better. People around you will uh, look at your garden and say, "Oh yeah, this person takes care of the things in his possession, in his care or her care, obviously." So it's something that you need to have intuition. You need to have your intuition speak on that a little bit. Like, what could it be? Feel it out. Feel the situation out of the querent. Look at the context, as always, and then ask questions like, so. Is there anyone in your life right now that you suspect that might be not such a good friend, or do you maybe even expect your spouse to cheat on you, or in other ways be emotionally disloyal to you? These are all things that Wunjo can indicate when it is in a converse position. So of course that might be in the past. It might have something to do with their current problems, so in the past. Yeah, so like to give an example, for example, if a person has recently had problems with a business partner, for example, and so this querent, he basically comes to you and he's like, yeah, so I would like to know how my business looks in the next 6 months or so. What are the probabilities and possibilities here for me? And converse Wunjo shows up in the past. Then it might mean that this individual came to you because in the past, there was some dishonesty regarding either him or his business partner or partners that were not entirely truthful to one party was not entirely truthful to the other party or parties. And for example, his business partner that he just got out with out of cooperation with, he may have committed fraud or something like that. They made agreements and they agreed on certain profits being split certain ways, and eventually it came to light that his business partner has just been pocketing like 10% of all the revenue that they're generating or whatever. I mean, I'm not too familiar with that kind of stuff, but I'm sure you get what I mean. So this individual basically has been committing fraud, and as a result, this businessman's trust in working with people might have been damaged, and he's now worrying about what results this may have had or may have for his business in the next 6 months or so. So from that, you can work with him, be like, yeah, so this person was dishonest with you, and you can basically apply some psychology and looking at the other runes that are, the challenge and future slots and all that stuff, so as to basically just go like, this is what the runes tell you is likely to happen from this point on, and here's what you can do to fix it. Um, or here's what you can do to reach your ideal situation. So, that's an example. So the spiritual meaning. It is a interesting room in Congress, because I feel in some ways that a lot of people dare to get back on what I said earlier when we were discussing this room. So many people are unhappy in their lives and what they do with their job, because they just do what they can't buy, which is understandable and oftentimes necessary. Yeah, it's kind of it's kind of this pressure, this blockage somewhere, somehow, some way, that is causing some upheaval, some uh, disconnect, some spiritual, um, slowing, some emotional drainage somewhere. There can be a dissatisfaction. There can be wanting things too quickly, wanting things to be too perfect. Um, you can experience dissatisfaction with your friends because they're not measuring up to your standards, and those kinds of things. But the blockage in those cases may simply be with you, because you might be the one that's placing too unrealistic of an expectation on a situation or a given person or a group of people, because people aren't perfect, situations aren't perfect, life isn't perfect. We're here to learn, we're here to grow, we're here to develop that spiritual power to you know to realize that we're all divine beings and not just a bunch of walking meat puppets that are a victim of circumstance. And this is why I find a spiritual path so beautiful, because um, it teaches you to take responsibility for for certain issues that you have in your life. And of course, you cannot always help external influences. I mean, if you're born in some country that's at war or whatever, from a human perspective, you cannot help the fact that the country is at war and that there might be food shortages, or that your village is just going to get attacked or bombed or whatever. You know what I mean? So these are things that you cannot help, obviously, until the greater collective decides to, pull their heads out of their backsides and put aside their differences in that way. But there are things that you can do within yourself to change your perspective on that situation. There are things that you can do to change your outlook, to through spiritual or magical workings, adjust the flow of energy to empower yourself to suddenly change the course of events, to influence the tide of actions with, of course, respect for free will. So, there are things that you can do to change the flow of energy, to change your perceptions of things. Like I said, there's always something that you can do that is within your power to, um, to help yourself here, and to not be a victim, to reach that happiness that you're striving for. Despite the fact that your circumstances may never be perfect, and very likely in this life never will be, you can most certainly find happiness in a chaotic world or in a chaotic situation. It is really not, impossible to make the most out of a situation, to find happiness, to find peace, to find clarity. It is very human to, always want more, and that is very understandable. Every one of us has been there. We've always wanted more, but that is a process of, stripping away that ego, of letting go of that pride. And that is a process that happens internally as you develop your spirituality, as you seek to find that peace within. All right, so lastly, we come to Wunjo in reverse. So when you see Wunjo in reverse in a divination, as one might expect, because an inverse rune oftentimes means that not necessarily the opposite of the upright meaning is true, but it might indicate that there is a stagnation, significant blockage in the flow of the energy here. So because Wunjo is about joy and happiness, it might be a sign of general dissatisfaction, strong dissatisfaction in this case. Like in converse, it might mean more like, oh hey, I'm walking that path to where I want to be, not quite there yet. I recognize there's problems, but I can overcome those. But Wunjo reverse might indicate a very strong, apathetic, or even hostile feeling, an aversion almost to, that attainment of that joy or happiness. And I'm not necessarily speaking from the viewpoint of the querent, but what I am implying, or maybe implying here in a given situation, is that, someone has a subconscious belief because, a belief is a very powerful thing. It shapes realities because that's just a thing that happens with people. Something I'm learning in psychology too. People shape their outcomes by imposing self-fulfilling prophecies. If you go looking for something, you will find it. It's just that simple. It is I would almost say the law of attraction. If you attract certain things, if you expect negative things to happen, they will. To give you an example, my mother and sister who live back in Holland, they, when I was still living with them, they constantly, no matter where they moved, they would move to a very quiet neighborhood, um, and they would move there, and inevitably, after 6 months to a year, the very quiet neighbors next to us would move out, and this is still happening, mind you. It's a cycle that's repeating over and over and over again, and it's insane because they move every 2 years pretty much, and we have always done that when I was still young, and they keep attracting these people that move in, and it's not a coincidence. I'm convinced of that. They are attracting it because every 6 months to 12 months, the quiet neighbors move out, and a couple moves in that is either abusive to their kids, that is, playing music night and day, um, that you can hear having sex through the walls for hours on end, all those kinds of things. And where they have a dog that just won't stop barking. We even one time moved into a place that seemed pretty good, and then a prostitute that dealt in drugs suddenly moved in. These are things that keep happening over and over and over again. And Now, I live here, and I love it here. I have no problems with any of the neighbors, but my mother and sister recently moved. And, again, they attracted noisy neighbors. And I'm not sure if there's a lesson that they need to learn from that, but I'm pretty sure that the lesson here is their inner belief is no matter where we go, and they have actually told me this, by the way, no matter where we go, we will attract noisy neighbors because that's just what we attract, And I have repeatedly told them. Now, of course, they have a very different religion than my own. I have no religion. I'm eclectic, So I've told you that before in previous videos, I think. But they see themselves as passive victims of the devil, basically. They feel that there's nothing they can do just because they're God's people and they're being persecuted. This is a stance that I cannot stand by because this is what I have seen to be false. You change your thinking, you change your energy, you change that very significant blockage in attaining happiness. In this case, the point I'm trying to make here, you have a very strong subconscious core belief that is attracting negativity into your life. So what you do with Reverse Wunjo is you change your psyche, you change the energy, the expectations you put out there for the universe, God, the gods, Great Spirit, whatever you want to call it, that universal flow of energy, basically, that we have the power to shape our realities to a very high degree. Now, as I mentioned in the converse, aspect of Wunjo, not everything can be controlled. I mean, theoretically, it could be on a more personal and smaller scale, but there are certain paths of magic and stuff that deal with that kind of thing. For most people, that kind of thing is off limits morally. So we're going to move on from that. But Reverse Wunjo is about that blockage, that belief that you are either not worthy or not allowed to, or that you're persecuted, that belief that you're hated by everyone you meet. So these are things that you must look inward to, like what could this blockage be about? And of course, if you're reading for someone, you have to feel out what it is that this person has as a core belief, like internally, and ask them to look within themselves and to scour their psyche to find the negative blockage that is there. Like, for example, are they too prideful to accept help? Because sometimes accepting help is what you need to get ahead, or to find the joy, to find that love, that friendship, to have those healthy family ties. So these are all things that you can analyze, can encounter. It represents misunderstandings between people, misunderstandings that people may not want to have cleared up. But again, usually this is an internal thing due to pride or anger. All these things. Like, there's this list of that Christians would call the 7 deadly sins, like pride, wrath, lust, sloth, all those kinds of things. And these are all considered internal blockages. For example, if you deal with chakras and stuff like that, there are specific sins or blockages, negative emotions that attract negative things associated with particular chakras, and they provide certain blockages in certain parts of your chakras for healthy flow of energy to specific specific types of energy. and this is how shamanism, we, for example, believe that, um, you know, what is in the mind is first in the spirit. In other words, people who experience significant distress somewhere, it is believed that this might be because a person has a certain opening in their spiritual field, and that this opening might attract evil entities that are, or negative entities. Because not all of them are intelligent enough to be called evil, but you know, these entities, they make a contract with you, and they then attach themselves to your chakra or your energy field in that particular area. And this entity then causes dis-ease in a specific type of the body or the mind or the psyche. Even block your link to the divine, to that energy, if it is in the crown chakra specifically, or the brow chakra, which is the third eye, for example. So what you need to do then is you need to go inside and you need to, for example, crown chakra blockage may be caused by pride. And what you need to do then is to, recognize, where is my pride located? What can I do to alleviate this pride? To, in essence, break the contract with this negative energy or spirit that is feeding off of you. And, you can then let that entity be exorcised, if you will. Sometimes it may even leave out of its own volition if the energy becomes too pure for it to, to feed upon, basically. So, of course, there are different worldviews out there, which I fully respect, but, this is how I have come to recognize how the spirit world works in this particular scenario. So, these are things that, um, yeah, these, difficulties that you're having, these blockages that you're having, they're all represented by reverse Wunjo, because, um, you know, people desire to be happy. That is just a fact of life. Everyone desires to be happy. Deep down, they do, regardless of their core beliefs of, oh, I am not worthy, blah, blah, blah. Because deep down, everyone wants to be happy. And they should be. They should strive to be. Period. That's healthy. It's right. It's normal. It's how it should be. So, it's something that requires a lot of internal analysis, a lot of introspection to fully understand the lack of force that is reverse Wunjo, because that's what it is. It isn't a force in and of itself. It is a lack of flow of energy, basically. Um, so that's why it can represent stalled ambitions, blockages, misunderstandings, difficulty in forging relationships, difficulty in finding a spouse, difficulty in, just feeling general joy, general satisfaction, all these things. It's just the absence of fulfillment, basically. So an example of what a reverse Wunjo might look like in a reading. Suppose you wish to start a family, for example. So you've been single for God knows how long. You feel you are ready for a relationship, but there is no suitable candidate in your vicinity or whatever. And your vicinity in modern day obviously includes dating sites. So you can find that person that you're looking for, and no matter how hard you look, you just feel that there is something that just doesn't want to see you happy. So you're also at the same time so absorbed in your job or your education or whatever you're doing with your life. You're so absorbed in it, you don't really take the time to get to know people. You're just like being very, you know, uh, basic about your analysis of people. You're like, oh yeah, yeah, no, this person doesn't fit my extremely long list of criteria, for example. So suppose you're a person that has like a checklist that's 100 points long. No, you're not going to find someone. So in that case, for example, the challenge might be reverse Wunjo. It is your belief, it is your expectations. And, maybe even it could be that you're just trying too hard. It could be that you want it so badly that you're pushing for it, that you're browsing, browsing and browsing in real life and online, and you're just trying to, date everyone that crosses your path pretty much, that offers themselves up to you, and you're like, oh yeah, it doesn't really quite fit. Oh, dating is so hard. Oh, you know what I mean? So that individual, that querent that has reverse Wunjo as an example, um, they may simply be the cause of their own misery. It may simply be that they just don't, give any credence to someone else's legit attempts of trying to befriend them, and maybe even beyond them. It may simply be that there is a, because like I said, this individual might be too busy with their job or something. They might drown themselves in their job. And well, if you're so busy with, if you're so busy with your job, if you're so busy with all these other things, you won't have time. You need to do that in order to remove that blockage. You have to quite simply make more time. You have to sacrifice some of your monetary gain and some of your, passion in that regard, to be accommodating to a relationship of whatever kind. So yeah, again, everything starts within, which is something that we have discussed in previous rooms, I believe, namely Uru's, that inner power, that raw strength, that universal energy, and in the case of this example, that sexual energy, that you need to harness, that you need to use, that you need to put forth, that you need to utilize. And as long as energy blockages exist, like is the case with reverse Wunjo, um, you're not going to be able to effectively utilize these things. So, changing thought patterns, in short, changing emotional or subconscious held beliefs, changing the flow of energy, actively working on your own issues, actively working on your own, um, you know, weaknesses, I would say. These are all things that you can do, and it really doesn't have to be that hard. It really doesn't, because I think the main reason, and of course I recognize it within myself as well, the main reason that people don't want to change certain aspects of themselves is because of pride. I mean, there is a difference between self-acceptance and saying, you know what, I'm a cool guy, or I'm a great girl, or I'm a great individual overall. Um, it's there is a difference between accepting that you, with your flaws and all, as you are, you're a great person, okay. But there is a difference between not wanting to improve and accepting that you currently have things that you need to work on. I mean, life is a never-ending learning experience. So if you stagnate, if you refuse to, um, surrender to that expansion of yourself, it's going to create blockages in your energy flow, and it's going to create blockages in the energy flow towards the abundance, especially the abundance that Wunjo offers, which is happiness and joy. And it's going to cause a lot of pain, whether it be physically, mentally, spiritually. So it's a it is the hindrance of things, in short. So I don't really think that there is much more to say on this one for now. Anyway, it's like I said, there's always more to learn about a rune. Mastering the runes is not going to be, you watch this video or you watch the video of someone else and, oh, I know what this rune is. No, it doesn't work like that. Runes are quite deep, intrinsic, universal powers that can be used, they can be misused, depending on how you look at them, how you treat them, how you handle them. So, of course, I would always encourage everyone to, do their own meditations, their own, their own work with them, your own meditation on them, your own work with them, I should say. And I would, encourage you to, to utilize the things that you learn from it. It is one thing to sit here and to know, but in other words, it is one thing to have the force of chaos, to have knowledge, to have enlightenment on things, and it is yet another to harness the energy of Hansus or wisdom. It is something that I too do, and this is actually part of the reasons that I think I have mentioned before. One of the reasons that I do these rune videos is because they help me to understand them better, which is perhaps quite ironic because I'm, telling you all about these things, or all about these things. I'm telling you my perspective on them, what I've learned from them so far in the relatively short time that I've been working with them. And, there is always more to learn, and an attitude of humbleness and humility is a good thing when you're learning, because there's always someone out there who knows more than me, who knows more than you. It's a very good thing, and I think that is a good, epilogue to the First Aett, because the next Aett deals with upheaval, it deals with disruption, it deals with stagnation in the form of Isa, disruption in the form of Hagalas, unwanted necessity in the form of Naudis, lessons that you learn that you can take to your next challenge in Yira. And then there is, of course, the very powerful Soilo, or the Sun Rune, that is so charged with revelation, with true power, with energy, with just the power of the sun itself, pure life-giving energy that is near the end of that Aett, of the second Aett. And these are all things that you need to be prepared for when you meditate on the second Aett that we will be discussing now. To take the power of the first Aett, the energies that you learn from them, and that way you're well equipped in dealing with the second Aett. That is not necessarily implying that when you're studying a specific room like Hagalas, suddenly everything around you in your life will explode. But I'm merely saying that you should be willing to harness the energies of those rooms in the times in which they are applicable. So you learn things from them, and that's great, but apply them. Because they will be guides. They will be giving you strength. The runes are the very universe speaking to you. The runes are, they're the force and the collective wisdom of our ancestors, of those strong tribes that were inhabitants of Scandinavia and Germania back in the day. They are the runes, the power of our ancestors, and it is truly a very powerful thing. So I would recommend that you do your own meditations on it, get your own strength from it, get your own power from it, and you will become a very powerful individual regardless of what you use it for. If you just use it for divination, that's fine. Having insight into the future or a possible future, that is a very powerful thing in and of itself, because when you know the threads that the Norns weave, you can navigate, and knowing where to go is a very valuable thing, especially in these times where there's so much happening around us, and we have access to so much happening around us because of the information age, that there is so much that we keep track of. And, it is very helpful to be able to shape your life, to influence your own life, to put forth the energies, to utilize the law of attraction, and to draw in what you want, and to keep out or simply bypass the things that you do not want in your life. So I guess that's all I have to say for today, and thank you so much for listening. I'm simply very humbled by the fact that I have people watching these videos and hopefully learning things from them, and I really appreciate that, because some of the comments that I've had, they were really encouraging. So some of the people that contacted me were really friendly and just encouraging me to get back to this. My friends have been encouraging me to do it, and again, my apologies that it's taken nearly a year. I am so incredibly sorry for that. But I really, really felt that I needed to learn certain very valuable lessons before I could, move on to this particular room and into the next 8. So, yeah, thank you so much for watching. So I hope you guys are sticking around for the second 8, which is sometimes called Vindarnas Hus. We are going to be discussing the rune Hagalas, the rune of disruption, next time, which is a quite interesting rune. You probably won't be happy to see it sometimes. Sometimes you will be. It totally depends on the situation. It is, it's a very powerful rune in its own right. It is, in the end, nothing to be feared. But I know from experience that when I first learned about the runes, Hagalas, it scared me. So it's like notice. But yeah, so that's something that I'll have a lot of enjoyment discussing with you guys, and hopefully to for those of you who have just gotten into this and who are exploring the concept of the runes, and in particular those first 3 runes of the second 8, they can be runes that might scare someone if they if they're new to this. So I hope to alleviate some of your perhaps existing anxieties, and to give a more positive, constructive outlook on them, if that is what you are currently feeling. And if not, I simply hope that I can properly inform you of it. So I would say hail to you, and have a great day.